you ready?
That was very late.
I also didn't say Ocho.
Oh, okay.
It's fine.
Fine.
It is what it is.
You think it's fine, Craftsdwarf, sir?
The Ocho arc is over. Holy shit!
The
But
question
I
is,
know
do you
that
think
now.
I think it's fine? That's the real question. I
No,
don't.
Yeah,
you
are you
don't.
okay, Vindy? Are you traumatized?
You've betrayed your Hispanic
I
heritage. You
genuinely
are
don't
a
want to
race
talk
traitor.
about it.
Yeah,
Yet
maybe
you brought
that's
it
why
up.
I was like stun locked because you didn't actually say Ocho. I was like, wait, what's going on?
Honestly,
What
fair.
number comes after Ocho?
True.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the usual counting podcast. I'm your host, Craftsdwarf. Here with Math Wiz, or no, fuck.
Oh
Yeah,
my
Math Wiz. Yup,
goodness.
Math Wiz right here.
I cannot
Nunmanji and
believe it.
Vindy. I don't think have I done that. I know I've done that with Nun before, but I don't remember if I've ever done that on the Weeb Club.
You usually do it on the Pokemon podcast specifically. Yeah.
Well, whenever I say host Craftsdwarf, my brain is like, yeah, we're recording an end show now, and so I don't. I normally don't do that on the Weeb Club.
Well, it is what it is.
Comments.
So I've read the comments several times, and I've read like most of these, but I kind of don't remember which ones I wanted to like bring up specifically.
Zach9165 says true boners need to stick together. You know what, Zach? I agree with everything you're saying. Truer words have never been spoken. That's on God.
We
You
did get a
quote me
few
on that one.
Mario Kart people saying their Mario Kart characters. I'm afraid for Megaraphics because he picks Toad, and I don't know if he because he I don't know. I assume he still does it where he'll literally go through things because we have. So I'm like, did this motherfucker actually watch the Mario movie?
Mega Graphics is fucking playing Sonic games, so like he's still doing it.
No, I remember
he doesn't really have a history with Sonic, so it's not like he's just doing this like randomly, I guess.
But yeah, no, because I also remember he was playing the Metroid games back when I was playing them, or started playing them. So, I just because that, he, the Trust the Fungus, that's like, he could have referenced that just from me saying it. But if he saw the movie, then, more power to him. So yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't see the movie because it's not on this thread.
Fucking traitor. I have been stabbed in the back. Megraphics is no longer my friend.
He's a little more like your son, to be honest.
All right. Let's see what else. Titania had a long comment about Sakura. I was wondering if you guys had read it.
No. I read the comments, like I said, like the day of, and there weren't that many comments up, and then I just haven't like looked at them really since. So
Unfortunate.
It is what it is.
Oh yeah, if you want to know, the MC timestamp is when you were specifically talking about how it shuts you off if you're watching a video.
Yeah, I clicked it. I would say I agree, and like I know it's like cringe, but like also it is what it is, and it's not that like I want to be like that. It just genuinely is that like I don't know, like that's how I am. You know what I mean? Like I just cannot watch their shit. Because like it just bothers me the whole time because it's like they're so not they're not there. How can I believe that they're still, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean
at the end of the day, like it kind of depends on who it is and like what it is specifically. For me, like it's not always like it'll make me not want to watch the person anymore. Like for example, I still watch Hazel even though like there's two things off the top of my head that like she said that's like, brother. I mean, one of them is not really big deal, but it's like in her Denny's video, I think she said something about music, like musical shows having X or whatever, and Sket Dance was on screen, and it was the sketchbook opening, so I get why maybe she either would have mistaken it for a music show or it just happened to be the clip that was on screen. But I love Sket Dance. Not a music show. That one's not really a big deal. But in one of her like extra things that she uploads on her side channel, her wife she was saying Hazel was saying something about Naruto, and then her wife said it doesn't hold up or whatever. And then I think Hazel was like, that's probably true or something. It was like a little Naruto negativity, but like it is what it is. Like I like her enough to where it's like it's not gonna bother me when there's little stuff like that. I know there's been like other tiny things, but I can't really remember. But like if it's somebody that I'm trying out for the first time and it's like already something that's like just in their videos, it's like, bro, I don't know if I can like deal with that if they haven't proven themselves to me like prior.
That makes sense. So Alon's Anime brought up the Yoshitsune, a scene that is really good with him, and it reminded me, like, because another scene with Yoshitsune I like from 20th Century Boys is like sort of his like last major one in opposition to the Friends, where he's he just deals with the defense force in the way that he does, and it's really good, and I remember that one as having stuck with me for a while. But I also remembered that there's a whole fucking character I didn't talk about, because there's Koizumi Kyoko, who is just a regular ass high school girl who gets caught up in all this bullshit. And like, I swear to God, Naoki Urasawa was like channeling his artistic ability for expressions through that character in a way I've not seen in any of his other manga. Like every fucking page she's on, she's making some fucking like great stupid face. I love her. That's all I wanted to say, because it just reminded me of more 20th Century Boys that I didn't talk about.
A couple other comments. I want to bring up just a couple other people saying they're Mario Kart characters, because I did ask people.
I feel like more people should have said.
Tanya said Koopa is my favorite because of his cool motorcycle, but I also like Rosalina. That's fair. I think everyone went a little bit feral the first time they saw Rosalina in that biker outfit. And Koopa is a silly little guy. I respect people who play as Bowser minions, especially as a boner myself. But even outside of that, I just think playing as like a Bowser minion is so goofy in Mario Kart. Like if you like queue in dead ass, right? You like queue in the fucking double dash, and you're like, you know what? Give me Paratroopa Piranha Plant. Like, you just need to be fucking shot. You know what I mean? Like, that's so respectable, but like, you're also a psychopath, and I love it. And then another one was Oblivion said he's picking Waluigi, that he was his son before the memes. I think anyone who is a Waluigi fan before the memes is like a true, like, and I don't even mean this hatefully, but just like, you are a Redditor at heart, and that's why like the Waluigi meme slaps so hard, because you know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is. Like, he's built for the memes already, so of course they come to him, but it's also like, I get it though, and I respect if you're a fan before it's like Waluigi and Smash, and everyone's screaming about Waluigi, but it is what it is.
Yeah, the Waluigi and Smash shit kind of fucked up the Waluigi thing a little bit. Like, that was just cringe.
It does make it hard to continue to be a Waluigi fan, just because, like, he's not that interesting. You know what I mean? And, like, not that, a lot of the characters are, but it's just, like, it's whatever.
Mateus De Campo asks about, because I mentioned playing Rock, Paper, Scissors with a fictional character as I watched Mile Precure, and he was wondering who won the most. I did not keep a record. I did realize that I should have, but by the time I did, it was like, what was I going to do? Go back and try and remember whether I won or lost or whatever. But I did feel like I was winning more at first, and then around like the middle, I felt like it was more even, and then towards the end, I felt like I was losing more. So I don't know. It was probably roughly, even. Damn, more or less.
He developed more.
Yeah,
winning by the end is more important.
arc.
It's not how you start; it's how you finish.
Okay, really quickly, I have another comment. It's from Titania. It says, Scarlet and Violet are the best Pokemon games ever made, that they love them dearly, but if Game Freak was allowed time, money, and the proper budget, it would be so much better. So everything with this, I don't agree with, like, those assessments. Even just looking from the outside is, like, what are the problems with the game, right? Like, I refuse to believe Game Freak can't get money to make a video game, right? I don't think it's that. I think, like, you could argue they need more time, but that's also
money and budget is the same thing.
Also, okay, that's true. But, like, I think those are not the issue. You could argue time is, like, a factor, but also, like, Pokemon just as, like, a piece of media can't, like, I feel like we should all understand innately at this point. It's 2023. Generation 9 of Pokemon. We should understand you can't really delay the Pokemon games. There's the anime, there's the fucking cards, there's, the merchandise and all this other shit coming out. Now there's shit like Pokemon Unite, and, and a lot of times there's been like Smash. Like there's all these things that, Pokemon has to come out on time because Pokemon matters to so much other stuff. But the other thing with that is like this completely forgets, it just completely obscures like the real clear glaring issue with Scarlet and Violet, which is that Pokemon is owned by dog shit Nintendo, so it's forced to be on their shitty fucking handheld system. Like, it's a fucking mobile gaming console, and it's trying to run this game that Game Freak are forced to try to make look and run like it's a AAA game. And, like, there's so much stuff in that game that shows that they cared and they did what they could, but, like, the Switch was underpowered when it came out 6 years ago. Like, how is it supposed to run like a real video game? You know what I mean? Nintendo are just the worst, and everyone should just throw all the blame at them forever. Nintendo suck. Leave Game Freak alone.
I wouldn't say all that,
even
though I hate Nintendo.
I have a question. I never played Breath of the Wild. Did it run well on Switch at all? Or
it ran well, but there is an area
because it
where
was
it runs
a
like
Wii U
absolute
game.
dog shit.
Yeah, that's also true. It also, like, the big thing that like a lot of Switch games that like end up running well do, and like you just have to be paying attention, and like Scarlet and Violet does this a lot too, is just like, especially in handheld mode, the resolution just gets so like it'll scale the resolution, and so like even if like it's running fine frame rate wise, you'll be in like 240p. You know what I mean? That's how like Xenoblade is, where it's just like it's like unlookable. Like you can't, like, it looks so dog shit in handheld.
Frontiers looks fucking terrible. Frontiers on Switch looks worse than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, like easy. That shit looks so, like, it's the worst Switch game I've ever seen visually. Like I'm so shocked at like how it looks both on screen and handheld. I don't know why more people don't bring that up.
Okay, well, I was just wondering because my friend mentioned Breath of the Wild like running pretty well, and also being a 5-year-old Switch game, where it's like, I guess my question is like, why is it that this big open world game runs well and Pokemon and Sonic don't? I guess is my
Breath of the Wild comparisons is like, I feel like it's a little unfair when it's like the literal number one best example. I get that Pokemon's a big franchise
also,
and like
Breath
it's bigger
of the Wild
than Zelda,
had like a 6-year
but like
dev time.
It's one of the only exceptions, and yeah, it was like long dev time.
It was
like,
a 6-year dev time. Was
just
being
goes back to
developed
time.
for the system. Well, yeah, and I mean it was being developed originally for a system. It was originally being developed. It's a Wii U game, right? First of all. You know what I mean? Which most Wii U games, like, it's a fucking Wii U game the same way that Twilight Princess is like a GameCube game. You know what I mean? Like, it was being developed for the Wii U. It came out on the Wii U, so it runs well on the Switch the same way like Donkey Kong and like Pikmin 3 and stuff run well on the Switch because they're just like Wii U games at the end of the day. And then like the other part is just like, there's less going on. Like Pokemon's trying to like run like there's so many Pokemon doing all this shit like in the open world, and like, they're trying to pop in, and all of that just seems like it's a lot more than what you get in fucking like Breath of the Wild, which like is a lot, but time, and also the people who like the dev studios being the same as the people creating the hardware probably makes it a little bit easier to optimize stuff because it's, you know what I mean?
I think even if like Pokemon has like longer time and stuff, like I think it's absurd if you ever think Pokemon should like have as much time as like Zelda or whatever. Like
no,
that is
I don't
like,
think it should have.
No, not you. I mean, just like I feel like it's not really a good comparison when people compare Breath of the Wild and Pokemon. Like there's probably some kind of better example of something that's like more reasonable to compare it to, but I don't really think Pokemon's ever even makes feasible sense for it to take as much time as Breath of the Wild did.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because like you brought up Vindy earlier, where it's just like, yeah, that's Game Freak has to make, I don't even know how big of a company it is compared to Nintendo, or at least the divisions that work on like say Breath of the Wild or something, or Mario Odyssey or whatever. But like Pokemon, they have a lot of games to come out. Like I mean, I guess like they like. Because Legends Arceus was not even 2 years or like 1.5 years, or was it over 2 years between?
I mean, part of it is like the timeline's a little murky in the fact that like they partially work on things.
Yeah,
like,
I mean they
a little earlier than
Pokemon
it seems.
As well, but
so it's hard to like timeline things exactly, but.
Also, it was not even a full year between Legends Arceus and Scarlet Violet. It was the same. They came out in the same year. Like they both came out in 2022 because it was January 28th. It was like 11.
The thing is though, they split
months.
Their teams for different things.
Yeah, and
so
I mean,
like
Legends
to,
Arceus was also delayed.
Long.
So, but Legends Arceus also didn't run well. So it's like it is what it is.
Okay. yeah. Because I don't know, just Pokemon just seems to have a particular particularly brutal like
maybe
fucking
what
turnover
people
time.
want Pokemon
and,
to be doing currently is hard to run on the fucking Switch.
Yeah, and because Breath of the Wild, they were able, like, they can delay it, but they can't, like, Breath of the Wild 2 got delayed, and Pokemon like can't, so it's just unfortunate. So okay, just all around, I guess. I'm ready to move on though.
Yeah, I'm good.
I guess the final comment that I have is really just like Titania explaining that leaving a fandom is like reverse cancel culture, which, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, moving on to the Reddit. I have to explain the context of this image in case, you guys might remember, but obviously
I remember.
Okay, yeah, but obviously, there might be some
I'm a
watching.
big Craftsdwarf guy.
So basically, this artist made a big like compilation of image of a bunch of One Piece YouTubers, and then a bunch of people were like, wait, hold on, where's this guy? And so out of, a harried desperation, he eventually made a much bigger image, or he edited his image. I think a lot of the art was the same for the YouTubers he already encountered or included, but he very clearly just added YouTubers not knowing who the fuck they were. My second favorite addition, it was Super High Patch Wolf and the Poddy cast, but how he did it is he had like Super High Patch Wolf as like a wolf, and then he had the Poddy cast as like a person with the split face, because if you remember it, their icon was like Hypocrite and Best Guy Ever like icon, but split in half. So as like one person like writing on Super High Patch Wolf, which was just really absurd.
That's
knowing
funny as fuck.
all of them and how they don't have any connection at all, and they're like way in the back on the right, I think I remember. And then this is obviously my favorite edition, where it's like horrifying Craftsdwarf Stickman, like he saw that icon, I was like, what the fuck do I do with this? And it's like he just put some fucking horrifying monster in there.
It is my favorite Craftsdwarf fan art.
I like this one. You actually just look like just some random skinny guy. I actually love it.
Like I look like the rest of my body is gonna come out, and it's like I've got like freakishly long arms and fingers, and I'm just gonna fucking like start crawling over shit like Ava01 or something like that, and it's just gonna be horrifying. Like, it's amazing.
I need Spoon to post this like full image, because now I need to like look over, because I never noticed the podcast in Super Eye Patch Wolf.
Yeah, it's something else. I appreciate being included for sure, because at least one person was like, where's Craftsdwarf? Probably more than at least a few people, just because I've made so many videos. And I think they're pretty good. But, it's just the result is wonderful. So it's good. All right.
Let's go.
I'm ready to move on.
Your newest video's almost at 100K.
Let's go.
If I forget to congratulate you, congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Releases no videos
gamer.
for over half a year. Finally puts out a video that someone else edited on a script that's almost a year old, and becomes one of my largest videos. And it's like, okay, sure, cool, nice, appreciate it. I don't know, it's just weird to me.
Without the Kururin, it would have been like 200K, but you said Kururin in the video.
Respectable.
I read the manga.
I respect that.
No, he's weird.
Introduce the topic that you came up with.
Yeah. Oh, let's go.
Jesus Christ, that was so fucking aggressive.
Okay, I'm excited.
No,
why can't I be excited?
Craftsdwarf, not you.
Oh, okay. Well, today we're doing a topic that everyone asked for multiple times. It's been the most highly requested Weeb Club topic. So requested that we're doing it again. It's talking about Seinen versus Shonen. Which one's better?
Oh
we're doing it again because the initial one was bad, and also Crafts wasn't there, so we can easily recycle. And it's the highest viewed weekly for some reason. And Craftsdwarf isn't there.
Right.
I don't even know what I said last time.
I vaguely remember. It was okay. So I decided to check. Well, because I was wondering if this was a beeping episode. It was not, in fact, the beeping episode. Where something fucking happened in the rendering process, and the like whole last half of the episode was just interrupted with just.
It was the episode about bad endings, and then it had the beeping, which was a bad ending. But it doesn't ruin the whole thing. It was part of the message. Hold on.
Well, no, I was just laughing at this reply because I made a comment. Apparently, I'm just gonna read it out loud. Vindy, if you stream yourself going to one of the Final Fantasy XIV banquet things, you need to IRL wear a bow tie over your shirt, or we aren't friends anymore.
Banger.
But the only thing I remember from that discussion is I remember Vindy, you were saying, I mean, I'm not saying that you guys didn't have more after this, but I just remember what you were saying where it's like, you guys watch us at Log, and if you know what we think about it, just, because it was, I'm pretty sure this was a patron.
Damn, so I can't say the same thing again, which was,
I mean, my thought about that is also justified by the fact that the video got so many views, is that people are going to might watch who don't know what you think, so
like that's the only weekly that I know of that's brought in new viewers, because like I feel like
so
when we get new viewers it's from
funny
outside
that, like,
forces.
The one that I'm like, no one's gonna watch, y'all fucking know, y'all watch, y'all understand what to think, is the one that people actually watched and didn't watch us and didn't know what we think. You know what? Okay.
There's new people after that who's like leaving comments about stuff that's like some people actually thought Natty was gonna join because they didn't understand what I do in the like titles and stuff, and like they don't know who Natty is, so it's like it's not clear that, I don't know. It was just like a whole. I remember some comments that were very much like people didn't know what was going on.
Well, to be fair, I barely feel like I know what's going on half the time.
Like,
on this
I remember,
podcast.
I remember when, I don't know if we talked about it, or maybe you guys talked about it, because like you mentioned something about like me quitting YouTube or something like that to write fan fiction or something, and people legitimately believed you, which was amazing.
I didn't remember that I said that. I just remember I mean, I've seen the title several times, but I do kind of remember I said that now.
Because it lined up with me, stepping away from the Weeb Club, so it was, and it's not even unbelievable, because, I've been tired of making videos, and I do like creative writing and stuff, so, there's, the best lies are told with truth within them, so,
I'm like Lelouch.
Anyway. All right, let's
people lie to seek greater truth. That's what Lelouch says.
Yeah, I guess.
You're something, huh?
Yeah, I like Code Geass. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
And that's why Seinen is better than Shonen, because Code Geass is Seinen and not Shonen.
All right.
Well, I think the manga adaptation was Shonen.
How about instead of we just not talk about the topic, let's like talk about the topic a little bit. So Craftsdwarf, what is a manga? Keep in mind, this might reach people who don't know what we're talking about, so we should,
You're such a piece of shit.
No, but for real, okay.
The Code Geass manga shoujo.
For real, can you
Let's
explain,
go!
Can you explain, since you weren't here last time and haven't given your thoughts on it at all, what do you think, like, about, like, what would your definition of, like, a seinen manga or a shonen manga, both, like, as colloquially and then as, like, dictionary definition-wise as you can, and then what do you think about people saying that one is inherently better than the other?
1 second. I need manga are comics or graphic novels originating from Japan. Most manga conform to a style developed in Japan in the late 19th. Okay, I'm bored. This is bad. I'm not reading that. I just pulled up Wikipedia.
I respect that.
What was the question? I was too busy pulling up Wikipedia.
Okay, so what? Since you weren't here last time, I'm gonna let you talk. Like, I think you should probably like go first about it. Okay. So what do you like? Can you define for everyone, or like give what your definition is, at least like both like in terms of colloquially, and then like when you talk about like as strict of like a dictionary definition as you can give for both seinen and shonen manga, and then what you think about when people say like one is better than the other, stuff like that.
So basically, manga magazines are made with different demographics in mind. So you have, so if I remember correctly, you have Kodomo magazines, which are divided into Kodomo magazines and boy Kodomo magazines, which are aimed at like basically under preteens, and like the ones for boys are like include lots of Kamen Rider, or the ones with girls would be like Precure or Aikatsu or Hello Kitty and Doraemon, like the stuff for your particularly young kids, basically targeted at them primarily. Then you have shonen and shoujo, which are for like preteens to around 18. So you have your shonen manga, which obviously was popularized with Shonen Jump, and then you have shoujo manga like your Ouran High School Host Club and all that good stuff aimed at girls. Then you have, then you have seinen and josei, which are for basically 18 plus adult manga. There would be Motorcycle Guy.
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh my god!
He's back.
I'm so excited.
Round
2 episodes in a row. Let's fucking go. So basically, I guess like there are other manga like there's hentai manga magazines, which would obviously be even like that's a whole other demographic, and I'm sure they're divided by there's one's aimed at women and one's aimed at men or whatnot, and different like types of what. That's a whole ass thing. That's not what we're fucking talking about. I am also aware that there's like shonen and seinen can also be a sort of like they can target audiences that like you could have a shonen magazines that's more of a general younger audience demographic. Like it's not specifically targeting boys, but it still just falls under shonen. Just because I guess like there's not much else to call it, or I'm not sure what you would call that. And then seinen is the same way with just general adult magazines. But then of course so that's just the base simple what is it? And I'm pretty sure there's some gray areas, because I remember I think one magazine is Champion Red. I think it's the magazine that Frankenfran ran in, and it's also the magazine that Shigurui started in. But then there was another sister magazine so that one was it's shonen, but the demographic was literally just 17-year-old, very late teens. And that then has another magazine where that's considered seinen, where it's just straight up over 18. And Shigurui moved from one magazine to the other, and it didn't change at all. I read it. There was no feeling of this manga is different. I couldn't have told you where the change was. Where with say Vinland Saga, which also changed from a shonen to a seinen magazine, you can tell because the length of the chapters changes, the art becomes more detailed. But that's not even because it's shonen to seinen. That's because it's changing from weekly to monthly format, I'm pretty sure. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run is also a manga that changed from weekly to monthly, and it doesn't feel different. It just chapters are different in lengths, and that's really it. So that's more important than the demographic shifting. But so you can have areas like that where it's like Frankenfran it's technically a shonen manga, but it's also incredibly gory and graphic and gross and existentially horrifying and regular horrifying, and so at the end of the day, they're just kind of labels. And obviously, and especially if we go to demographic, I remember one commenter talking about how I think this was would have been 2019 or something like that, 2020, and saying that the most popular shoujo manga of the year, if you define it in regards to manga that the most girls read, then it's actually Kimetsu no Yaiba, because it was insanely popular with everybody, including girls. So there's also, I think there's a manga award where they give to the most popular manga per gender, basically. And I remember I don't remember what it was, but I remember Urusei Yatsura coming up in the context, because it was one of the early examples, if not the first one, that won the award for both guys and girls, and that it was their favorite manga that came out, basically. So obviously, even though these demographics do exist, and you can point and just say this magazine markets to this audience, and therefore all the manga that come out are in this demographic, which is fair. But it's only, and there's still we have sort of conventions to these magazines that we're aware of, Chihayafuru. Even there's a little joke in one of the volume extras where apparently people call it a shonen manga because it's got the sports and the hard work. And even though if you look at the art style, it's a josei manga, so it looks more like that sort of shoujo-esque style, if you would. And then there's commonalities and stylistic choices and a long history, decades, in the past. So it's a whole ass thing that ultimately winds down to just, who is this being marketed to? And then you get people who again, limited cultural West bubble from getting this lens of just seeing just a few series from Japan, where we get what are the most popular anime in the 90s? Basically Sailor Moon is, and it being kind of the only shoujo manga doesn't really get, I don't know. I can't think of any other shoujo manga that got popular until the 2000s, but then you got, shonen Dragon Ball, and then you have, I guess this was still early 2000s, but Cowboy Bebop, and, Evangelion, and stuff that would be considered seinen. And so you've got this good-bad dichotomy, and that evolves into stupid shit people saying, shonen is better than seinen, where it's just marketing, really. Oh, that was a long fucking explanation. Shit.
Are you cool with someone else going for a little bit, or you still want to
go for it, please? I just talked for you could have just watched my video on. I literally have a video about this kind of. That didn't you edit it, Nun?
Yeah, I edited.
Yes, you did. You fucking edited the fucking Kinemon farts and Chainsaw Man and whatever the fuck. I don't even remember.
I put Roboco in there, chapter 25.
Let's fucking go! Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, I wanted to expand on your point about, like, what you were last saying in regards to how people just arbitrarily view seinen as better because of, like, just, like, selection bias and kind of, like, mostly because, like, you know, for years, what we would get in the West that's, like, on TV and stuff is mostly, like, shonen. And also, for manga that get translated, there's a lot more shonen being translated, whereas, like, seinen, it's a little later that it really, like, hits the scene in the same kind of way. So, like, we're getting kind of, like, the popular, like, really good, well-written, acclaimed stuff first, and not really, like, all these random seinen stuff, like, all along. So, like, you just kind of have, like, Berserk and, like, some of these, like, really, really high prolific seinen stuff being compared to, like, shonen, like, just shonen generally. So it's, like, it's kind of an unfair comparison, I feel like, when, like, we get, like, all, like, even now, we get, like, stuff in this like, in Shonen Jump, just, like, random one-shots and, like, random, things that end up getting canceled, like a Gravity Boys. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, seinen, I don't think people are even now reading, like, a lot of seinen magazines, like, everything in a seinen magazine's catalog, like they do with Jump. So, like, we're just so aware of all, like, the Jump, like, failures, I guess, quote unquote failures. I don't want to say, like, failures. I just mean, like, manga that didn't work out and didn't catch an audience. Whereas seinen, I think it's so much easier to just, like, only read, like, the popular seinen that are, like, really liked and acclaimed, and miss out on all these, like, random seinen that nobody's ever heard of, and, like, even in Japan, like, failed to capture an audience or whatever. Like, it's just, like, fundamentally to me, like, an unfair comparison.
No, that's a good point. I'm actually trying to find. No, I guess it would be under, because like, the only manga that might even be seinen, I'm not even sure if it is we did a whole fucking video on it. Remember, or not video, a Weeb Club discussion. It was the one Isekai series. Remember, Vindy?
Yeah, I do remember that one.
Yeah, because yeah, I don't.
It was like it parodied like Kirito and like it kind of just took the idea of like a bunch of random isekai characters or popular ones and kind of just like made them like shitty versions
and had some weird ableist like anti-hikikomori thing, like, oh, these people don't deserve a second chance at life, and it's like, yeah, and then it got canceled because of the controversy basically, and that's like the only example I can think of a seinen manga that got like canceled early, because exactly like you said, that's a really good point, where it's just like people aren't fucking reading everything in the magazine like we can with Jump.
Yeah, Jump is like one of the only things people read everything in the magazine for. Even with Shonen Sunday, it's very rare to find somebody who's reading all of that.
Right, like, yeah, I thought about catching up to, like, I guess, yeah, Sunday magazine would be the easiest for me because I've already read Conan and Ippo, which are the longest series in those, magazines, so, but I still just haven't gone out of my way to read all those series, right? So, assuming even, at least to the point that I can, because not everything's going, because, yeah, not, like, Jump is only getting fully translated. Like, I can only read shit like Kokosei Kazoku, which ended a few weeks ago, the High School Family. The only reason I was able to read that is because it's being officially translated every week. Nobody would fucking even though it went for like a good, like, what, 9, 10 something volumes, like it had a bit of a run there. No one would have fucking translated the manga at all, right? Like, because it's just like, let alone from chapter 1, so it's just, yeah, no one's doing that for, Young Animal, or I think that's one of those seinen magazines. See, I don't even remember their fucking names.
Yeah, like,
even though I read a bunch of like.
The fact that it's already rare to find somebody who's even reading like Shonen Sunday, and then with like seinen magazines, nobody's like, people probably don't even know like what magazines are seinen magazines. Like and even with me, I can name like Jump, and obviously I know about Jump Plus, Shonen Sunday, Champion Red. There's the what was that one called? It's like on the tip of my tongue. Like, I literally I can't even remember right now. But like I definitely would struggle to like actually name Seinen magazines off the top of my head. It's just like there's so much less talked about.
No, yeah, like I knew Young Animal, but I had to double check to make sure that okay, yeah, Berserk did I don't even know, run in Young Animal. So like that's okay, cool. I named the Seinen magazine. Yay, clap clap clap. Right? But it's like I don't, I'd have to check other, I don't know, it's just yeah, but no, I definitely think, tying it to perspective, like especially like cuz I think, being like a kid who got into Dragon Ball, like, and then eventually going on, like when I was a teenager, I was at least aware of like, cuz I'm sure people, like online in the mid 2000s there would have been, people reading Berserk and watching stuff like Eva or Legend of Galactic Heroes, was one I eventually watched. Right, so there's just this idea of like as a person you're growing up and you're pushing away from those the childishness, the childish things, and getting into the adult things, and then kind of what I brought up in my video of just like putting down those childish things and hating childishness because you're insecure, possibly of just of this part of you that was you at a time, and just not being very mature about it, and it's like and it's like. And yeah, again, by having this limited selection of only like really good series versus having like literally everything, because there's official translations of manga that just no one cares about anymore, and series that like just ended and what came out and they finished, and it's like cool, like Violence of Hamelin was a series that I remember reading in high school, and it was kind of a bit of a parody of some of the action battle shonen stuff in some ways. It's been a while since I read it, but it's like, just ran in the 90s, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone bring it up, actually, now that I think about it. Like, I've, watched a bunch of anime YouTube, and I do a whole Nensho podcast, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about Violinist of Hamelin, even though it's a manga that I've read, 1.5 times or something, because I probably, put it down and reread it and finished it at one point, no, there's just not that there aren't obscure seinen manga for sure, but I don't know, it just feels different. I forget where I was going with that. I think I lost my thread at some point. Vindy does not want to fuck around with this topic at all.
No, I've been listening to y'all. I haven't had time to jump in. I mean, I think, so ultimately, I think it just comes down to demographics, right? They're not genres. I'm sorry, shonen isn't a genre. I know that shonen battle, people want to say is a genre, but I guess, but that doesn't mean that every it's like squares and rectangles, right? Where sure, you could argue that shonen battle is a genre, but not every manga that's in a shonen magazine is in that, right? Nisekoi is not a battle shonen. Fucking, something like Haikyuu is not a battle shonen, right? It's like a sports series.
How I would put it, as having started a podcast where our whole purpose was to try and specifically talk about battle shonen, is part of the reason for a lot of my rules is because from the outside looking in, we can't if I were to look up a series on Mal knowing nothing about it, and comparing it to information from a series I know as a battle series, knowing nothing about it, is I couldn't be able to tell which was because I wouldn't call Attack on Titan or Beastars battle series. Yeah, I was just thinking about they have a lot, and Chainsaw Man. Right, they have a lot of action, but there's still aspects of battle series that they don't have necessarily. Even defining those aspects. Well, it's oh, this series might have it, right? But then it's genres are a little bit fluid for sure, but I definitely I see what you're saying though. How exactly do you define a genre? It's at any point, so
even if they were genres, start comparing one over the other, but then when you realize that really they're just demographics, it's to then start comparing one to the other is next level. Either you have nothing to talk about, or your brain is just raw tin. You got worms in there or some shit, dog. It needs help. You got the Last of Us. You got cordyceps going on in there, something. And when you start knowingly comparing demographics, right?
Yeah.
It's also really funny when people like, use the first result on Google and use that as the demographic. Like, Claymore is a seinen because I Googled it and it said it's seinen. What magazine does it run in? A shonen magazine. And it's like, oh, interesting. And especially because, like, I think people go towards seinen. Like, and again, no one ever says, like, oh man, I love my favorite seinen manga, Hidamari Sketch. Like, no one ever says that. Right? Like,
he used the joke he used in his video. Let's go.
Oh, shit, I did. That's right. I did. Well, I mean, I love Hidamari Sketch. It's my favorite seinen anime and my favorite anime. So, yeah, but obviously people don't say that, right? Because, like, their idea of seinen is very much like, Urasawa manga. Or it's, like, very serious and adult themes and, you couldn't do this in a shonen manga because kids wouldn't like it kind of thing, right? But the funny thing is that, like, not that, like, I mean, I was literally talking about earlier, like, Pluto literally has a lot of the same messages as Naruto, right? Like, and I've talked about 20th Century Boys and how there's this, how it, going into an adult world and maintaining good parts of childhood, that can also be said about Naruto and One Piece, like, about, so it's like, they're just ideas. They can be in literally anything. And honestly, the funny part is that I feel like sometimes shonen manga can be more subtle than seinen manga. Like, I remember reading Liar Game, and I was like, and they're talking about Akiyama and how he, like, he's latching onto Nao and wanting to protect her because of, like explains his backstory with his mom and her being gullible and easily duped and her eventually dying for that. And I was like, oh yeah, Akiyama latched onto her now because she reminds him of his mother. And then like literally like 3 panels later a character just fucking states it outright, and I'm like, okay, all right, sure. Where I'll pull out, like, again, I'll look, or not again, like on the Nen show I've just brought up, like, or even in my One Piece videos, I can like find something like really small and I can pull a lot out of that in some way or another, because it's not being said to my face. And not that they aren't direct in a lot of ways. I definitely think kids could watch One Piece and get some very blatant ideas out of there, but I don't know, it's just like they're storytelling tools and they're not defined by in a certain genre demographic or whatever the fuck, right? So
and yeah. I think the thing people don't really think about with like demographics is the fact that like that type of thing changes over time, what the standards are at the time for something to be,
that's a good point,
aimed towards kids or not.
Oh yeah,
because like,
yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah,
there's definitely like very like kind of violent like maybe 90s or like 80s, maybe around like one of those ranges, like movies that can like pass for like PG-13 but now would maybe be like rated a bit higher, or kind of the reverse, because like I think there's certain things that get relaxed and then certain things that get like pushed up. And I feel like with language a little bit that's been like lowering, but there's like certain other things that I feel like are getting a little more restricted. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I definitely do think that's like kind of just a thing that happens naturally over time that I don't really think people bring into the discussion, to where like, kind of doesn't fully matter that something is rated a certain way, especially when like even with like certain like, for example, with like the PG-13 rating, right? Even those PG-13, it's always been like one of those things where like, if a parent approves or if a parent's there, then like younger ages can just watch it anyway. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's like, I feel like people put way too much weight on it, especially when it comes to like anime and manga specifically.
And you also just reminded me of how, like, because I guess it has to do with content, because like even just thinking about the difference in standards between like American stuff and Japanese stuff is like you watch Kamen Rider and fucking you got a Bugman fucking kicking the shit out of dudes, and there's blood and shit. Like I remember like in one, I think it was Die Ranger actually, where two characters are fighting out of their suits and one of them just gets punched and they just spit up a shitload of blood, and I'm like, the kid, if I watched this as a 7-year-old when I was watching Power Rangers, where they dubbed over the fight scenes of this exact this Die Ranger, the show I was watching, like I would have, like my mom and dad would have not wanted me to watch it, and I would have been like it's because blood in a show, it's so adults, right? Like just different standards culturally, and yeah, like you were saying, changing over time. Because I was gonna bring
there's
up,
also the shit of like, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it real quick, of like when anime was like first getting really, really popular in the West, like the fear mongering around like Dragon Ball, Pokemon, etc. But now Dragon Ball aired on multiple channels, and like I know it's been like censored and stuff, and like I know now like it's mostly Adult Swim that's airing Super or whatever, but like there's like content wise, it's definitely there's definitely things on Western television on like Cartoon Network and stuff that aren't like crazy more violent and like more bloody or whatever, especially with like current Dragon Ball Super. I mean, and like really the only reason it's on Adult Swim now is just because like Adult Swim's like one of the few places that still like goes out of their way to get anime, but like it's not because it's like super adult or anything. Like I definitely think now people don't care if kids watch like Dragon Ball, but like of the time, people were writing newspapers about this violent Japanese cartoon that your kids are watching, right? And like I can link the thing right now. Like this is the type of stuff they were like writing about it, but
yeah, no,
like,
I remember,
now things are way different.
Yeah. No, I remember living it because actually my most vivid memory of it wasn't actually in real life. It was in the fucking one of the Fairly Odd Parents like made for TV movie specials thing where there was an obvious Dragon Ball influence of like this yeah, exactly, like there is an in-universe character like Bully who had watched the show and he was using that excuse to be violent
I remember
towards other kids, right?
And I was actually a kid unlike you watching that.
I am hated and despised by this man.
He definitely does hate you.
Not true.
Vitriolic,
you hate me, Vindy?
I don't hate you. I'm just autistic. What can I say?
So yeah. Oh yeah, I was just gonna give some examples about like censorship in Jump, where it's like there's some parts of Hunter x Hunter that have some weird censorship on them, where also Togashi wrote probably what is, I mean, it's honestly just a text description, but the shit that fucking happens around Mukuro is some of the darkest shit I've ever seen in Jump. At least, and lack of emphasis on scene because most of it was only described, but it's still, but then like you have Chainsaw Man airing, running in the same magazine that had Blue Box where it censored a character giving the middle finger. So it's like I don't
as the same
like
magazine as Ayakashi
Jump.
Triangle where they censor the nipples in every chapter, but then put the nipples in the volume versions,
Yeah, right. So, right.
So, I mean, that's something that comes to mind is like a changing standards of the time. The fact that like Chainsaw Man's like uncensored and stuff, but like Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter had a little more censorship. Even though I feel like, at least visually, Chainsaw Man is like above those two in violence, but like. I feel like violence is something that they've laxed on over time, but like maybe like nudity and sexuality, it's either stayed the same or increased slightly.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, so interesting differences between even like anime and manga. One that comes to my mind with the shonen series is the JoJo's anime, where like it censors even like Jotaro smoking. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's
like people like they're more on like wanting to censor drugs than like violence and like
and it's
dying.
interesting. Well, and I mean there is a lot of gore in the JoJo anime that's censored as well. People would probably want me to bring up, but like it's just interesting how like a lot of what you see that are things specific to certain like magazines and what will be Seinen or Shonen, like do ultimately come down to like the rules and like guidelines and things that you can and can't get away with in that magazine, right? And for that demographic. So, sometimes like people will say, oh, well, shonen series, like certain things never happen. And sometimes it's like, it can only do so much in, a shonen series.
I feel like, I feel like part of the thing that people kind of believe when it comes to seinen is like they probably feel like it's more freeing and more like they have more artistic freedom, and the fact that like they can display all these things while shonen can't, but that ignores the fact that magazines specifically have their own standards and guidelines, and even like certain seinen magazines they might not want certain things, so it's like it's not necessarily like as clean cut as like, oh, seinen has more freedom because it's like adult focused or whatever. Like I feel like if like K-On!, right, like K-On! Guy, like the author suddenly wanted to decapitate one of the girls and like have all this violence out of nowhere, they would probably stop him and force him not to do that because like this is K-On!. Like there's probably people younger who are like reading this, and you're gonna destroy the appeal of your series and all that. Well, and like there's definitely stuff like that.
The appeal of the magazine as well. Like magazines themselves have different identities. Like Akagi, Fukumoto's Mahjong series runs in a magazine that specifically only runs Mahjong manga, which I believe it also ran Saki and Legend of Koizumi, which are one of them is cute girls playing Mahjong, and the other is politicians playing Mahjong in high stakes like gambles, and so like. So in the case of K-On!, the Kurara manga are obviously very much like, cute girls. So having, something that's violent would go very outside of the bounds of the manga or the magazine, even the magazine itself, let alone just the manga, right? So
because I'm like the thing is like certain like seinen series attract audiences outside of like adult male people, so that they become restricted by like other audiences who are invested in the series, especially when certain shonen like start taking in mind their like large female audiences to some extent. Like I don't think being like seinen or whatever is like inherently more freeing, because it kind of like depends on the context, and the same thing goes for like Western media. Like the fact that the first two especially the first RoboCop it was like X-rated or whatever, but like RoboCop 3 is PG-13 because eventually there's like a lot of kids who are into it, and it's like very appealing, and they sold action figures and stuff. So like the shift down or like the restriction of certain things can happen like anywhere. It's not really like shonen specific. We just tend to hear more about like editors getting in the way or whatever. Like people like to talk about like Death Note, Death Note. Maybe I think it was like confirmed or whatever that they did want to originally end after the like the L and whatever. Like they wanted to end earlier, and the near and mellow stuff wasn't going to be a thing, but they were forced to continue. But like I'm sure that stuff happens with like seinen. We just don't hear about it.
No, they have editors too, for sure. Like and exactly. I can't think of any examples either whatsoever.
Because like most people aren't like translating like interviews from those magazines, and like there's just so much more context missing from like the history of seinen and like what these authors are saying and like the lineage of seinen, and it's just like once you have like all that lack of context, of course it seems like seinen is like more freeing. There's not like as much like stuff going on that gets in the way of it. But
not even just seinen versus shonen, but also just like Shonen Jump versus literally any other magazine that is not Shonen Jump, because like obviously Shonen Jump occupies such a huge space. Like not that it isn't, it's obviously very huge in Japan as well, but in the Western space it's more disproportionate, I think, because of just how much popular like One Piece and Naruto and Dragon Ball are, right? So as a lot of the discourse that like the interviews that are being translated and are focused on these series, which is of note because Shonen Jump specifically is a harsh magazine, as I understand it, to get serialized in regularly. Like it's very brutal with the series that it cuts. Like it literally cuts a dozen a year, right?
Like they're literally competing with Roboco. Like it's fucking insane.
just give up. Just put down your pens, everybody. Like, there's 4 new series starting. You guys better pack it up. Like, you're not gonna outlive Roboco. Sorry, that's just how it be. But like in comparison, like I can't think of any series from like Weekly Shonen Magazine or Shonen Sunday that have been have had editors like fuck with how their series was supposed to go, because nobody talks about these series nearly as much, even though there are absolutely popular series in those magazines. But like I don't think I've never heard anything about Ippo being forcibly extended by an editor, or an editor doing this or that with the how the stories, even though again,
no, I mean after the big thing that happened in the early 1200s, Morikawa came out on his own and said, yeah, the story's about halfway done. Like, that was what he chose to say. So,
Right. So
I don't think he's being forced to continue.
There's behind him and there's an editor with a gun. In real life, he said it on his own, right? Like you said, that's right. So, but we just don't get a lot of that perspective of these other magazines because people are just so deeply interested in Jump, and specifically.
Another thing, like with the idea of like, oh well, they want to keep it going, right? Like let's be completely dead ass about like One Piece ending, right? Everyone knows, right? When One Piece ends, its sales are gonna go through the fucking roof, right? And the sales for that last Shonen Jump magazine that has the last chapter
the
of
full
One Piece
color last chapter of One Piece, holy fuck,
roof.
Dude.
People are not
so
going to be able
cool.
to get enough of it. You know what I mean?
I need
it's
to buy that.
sell
I might also buy
much.
it now that I think I have to
I've never
own.
thought about that.
Because I didn't.
But
think
I'm
about
sure
it
it's going to be
either.
hard to get. It might be something you might actually have to plan a trip to Japan the day that
Christ.
shit comes out, so you can be there and be like, "Hey, mine."
Yeah, because
Fight off children, dude. Even if they deport you, if you get the magazine, that's what matters.
Because the full chapter, because apparently the ones for like Naruto and some of the other older, because there's only like 3 or 4 series, 4 or 5 maybe that have gotten full color final chapters. So it's like and One Piece is like, if One Piece doesn't get it,
Slam Dunk Naruto, Kochikame, Roku
Dragon
Danashi
Ball.
Blues, Dragon Ball, right?
I don't remember Rokunashi Blues, but I believe you. So it's.
I feel like I vaguely heard of that getting a color thing, but could be mistaken.
Okay. But yeah. So but anyway, we're a little off topic. Just trying to think. Oh, I was gonna bring up another point about sort of content regulations being not as consistent. And one thing I remembered is how sometimes they're more or less lax. Not based on what kind of character the content is evolving. Like, so to go back to Jotaro, the only reason we're not allowed to see him smoking is because he's a minor. He's under 20 years old. But the 2 examples that I came up with or remembered is one was I believe it was a Family Guy episode where they did a joke where I think Quagmire killed the Simpsons or something like that, and that they stopped airing that on television, or at least that scene, and some people thought it was because something about like these popular characters. But then I also remember someone pointing out, is like, well, they also
kills
like
the baby.
There's children and a literal infant like murdered on like that's maybe a little bit too much, right? And
like that's the only thing I could think of, because like they probably like the House of Horror or whatever has shown like Bart being killed or something, and that was fine.
Okay.
But maybe it's because it's like a I don't know, Halloween thing, so somehow it's a little different. I don't know. But I can't think of like Maggie getting killed ever, aside from maybe Quagmire and what you're talking about.
Because I did forget about the baby, and I also haven't watched either show. But the other example, I've just been thinking about it a lot because I've been reading it, is Beastars, where there's a lot of sexuality in that manga. And I do wonder if, like, I mean, it's Shonen Champion, so it's always, like, as I understand it, compared to the other 3 big Shonen magazines, it's the more, like, offbeat and weird one. So maybe there's just, but, like, as far as, like, other Shonen manga with sexuality, at least from the big 4 magazines, because, like, Frankenfran is, content-wise, it might as well just be fucking Seinen just because of the shit that manga has. For Beastars, it's like, I do wonder if, like, I was just thinking as a postulation, maybe it's able to get you have more of that because it's like animal people instead of human people. Like if it was, but I don't know.
Probably, honestly.
That's very possible.
A little partially.
I'd have to look at, try and think of other examples of, like, you know, shonen manga that have the level of like sexuality that it does, and you know, doing like the same kind of acts or similar stuff that's happened in Beastars. Like, I read a chapter like yesterday where, you know, two college kids were getting frisky, and well, of course, one of them was a lion and one of them was a rabbit. It didn't go well because it's Beastars, but you know, yeah, it's just something I thought about as far as less. I know everything about this and more just like I wonder about this. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like once you like see all like the like once you actually have like read an okay amount of manga and like I've heard about like a substantial amount of manga, like there's so many like outliers and things that like you could say could swap demographics or whatever, to the point where like just trying to look at them as genres and trying to declare one is better is just like fundamentally wrong, when it's like really you should just be, you know, thinking about what kind of like themes and kind like certain kind of content appeals to you specifically, rather than like the broad like seinen, I like seinen more and this is better than shonen, especially when like you have to go out of your way to be like, oh, Chainsaw Man, Hunter x Hunter, and some random whatever is the exception, when it's just like it's just arbitrary at the end of the day, like what kind of seinen shonen labels given to something, because some people are going to disagree, and some shonen become like, you know, can become controversial for their content because like, you know, maybe some parents don't like it or whatever. I was just thinking of that manga, I just couldn't remember what it was called.
Or which one?
Yeah, the one you just said, the one with like yeah, fuck, I forget what it was. What author,
I don't remember. Go Nagai. It was like the predecessor ecchi manga,
I read
like
some
The
of
Godfather. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was super controversial. Apparently, all I remember about the controversy is that like a bunch of moms got together and they like met the author, and he was a handsome guy because they like envisioned some like fat gross pervert, and they were suddenly more cool with the manga knowing that it was drawn by a handsome dude. I don't know if that's true, but it's the idea of it is really funny. I feel like I have one more point to bring up. Oh yeah, no, I was gonna go back to sort of like, I guess, people just assuming that seinen has better writing or better art. Again, I think that's a big thing with that is just like the different selection. Like obviously, you know, reading every single Jump manga, there's gonna be stuff that doesn't have the best art, you know. But then there's also even like larger picture kind of stuff that people would like because I've heard that like what I was gonna say. Like since shonen manga is meant to have this youthful spirit, they'll let if an artist isn't the most technically good, but their art is still interesting, they'll, you know, like I just remember that coming up in some series about manga, you know, where maybe it was Kakushi Goto, where the author mentioned like he's too old for like to have youthful art anymore like that's less technical, if that makes sense, right? And again, if like only like, you know, like what seinen series are getting translated, you know, the ones that people think are interesting or good, and they're probably on average going to have a higher level of art, right? Which, you know, again, it's just or be monthly, for example, right? So where they just have more time to work on their art versus weekly manga like Shonen Jump. But the other thing I was just going to bring up is that like, you know, yeah, if you like, you know, because like I was thinking of like Children of the Sea or The Climber, which are series that, just thinking about how they tell their story, there's techniques they use that I don't really see in shonen manga a lot, but at the same time, like I can, you know, I've never read a story like, you know, One Piece, I've never seen something do the things Bleach does in a literary way, right? So like it's all just art, and if you find it interesting, you know, yeah, engage in it, find other things like it, try to find more of what interesting. If it happens to be seinen, sure. You know, but I just think it's absurd to just discount one or the other, whatever.
There was two things that I wanted to bring up. The first one was like, to be like completely honest, like even though I've read like way more shonen, the like comparing the lows of like the shonen art I've seen and the lows of seinen art, I feel like the lows of seinen art bother me more and look worse, because it's like with some of like the more violent sexual stuff, if the art looks bad, it makes it even worse. Like it looks so like unbelievably terrible to see like bad art for like a very graphic scene or like a very sexual scene. Like just read Elfen Lied, dude. That shit like traumatizes me. And like Parallel Paradise, dude, like like Okamoto has improved as an artist, but like because he's still like it's so sexual that it like he just can't like he can't live up to what he's trying to draw. Whereas like a really bad looking Jump manga, if it's just doing like funny, silly action stuff, it doesn't bother me that it looks bad. Like I remember people were saying that one like. You know that manga with that guy with the sword and like that witch girl and like witches were being like hunted or whatever? It was like canceled.
Guardian of the Witch or something?
Yeah, that one.
Oh,
like that was like super like okay with how it looked. Like it looked like one of those things where like if it did succeed somehow, I felt like he would probably improve
genuinely.
as an as an artist. I think
I said people were dumb about this at the time, but thinking back about it, it did look like a manga that like Tabata would have made before Black Clover. Like if someone had told me that it was a one shot, like, if you had told me it was like his canceled series before Black Clover, I'd believe you honestly. I'd be like, yeah, fair enough.
All right, but yeah, I don't know. But the other thing was fuck. Now I can't remember the other thing. The other thing was like an actual point. Oh yeah, I mean I kind of wanted to just mention how like there's also like the individual kind of the author specifically to keep in mind. Like they might like specifically want to push past what's like the average thing inside of that magazine or what they perceive as the demographics. So like a shonen manga doesn't define what the series is, and same with seinen, where like maybe like it's a trend in a certain seinen magazine for ultra violent things, but like but the author wants to do something else, and like that can kind of change the trajectory and like the common trend for the magazine for a time, especially with like shonen, since we know so much about like how Jump has evolved and like how certain shonen magazines have evolved. There's definitely been like trends of like ultra violent stuff like Fist of the North Star and Devilman that you bring up in your video of like that was kind of the thing of the time, and now like I think we're at a lower period, but Chainsaw Man might bring that back a little bit. Like who knows? Like there's still trends of the time to take into account, and the fact that individual authors want to do different things. But yeah, that's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think I'm about done as well if we're ready to move on, because I don't know, we got a good discussion out of that.
Yeah, good discussion, guys.
Okay, Vindy. See this fucking guy.
The hatred on this man.
What do you mean?
Mr. does not want to be here right now.
I would not that is a not true statement. I do want to be here.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
What would you prefer, recording the Weeb Club or taking a trip to Buffalo Wild Wings?
I don't have the money Scarlet. For B-dubs, dude. That shit fucking bankrupted me. Let me tell you what.
You can.
I'm chilling. I just look. What do you want me to say on a topic that like the first time we talked about it, I was like, yeah, I don't want to talk about this. I don't have anything to say. Like we're doing it again.
That's why I'm saying you don't want to be here.
No, I want to be here. I like talking to my friends. I like doing the Weeb Club. I just don't want to say anything because I don't think I have anything productive to say. And I know that the more I say anything, the more I'm going to make fun of anyone who would care about this discussion in the first place, because I think caring about this discussion is just silly and just like a waste of your time, and grow up.
Sad.
See, you don't want me talking about it. We can move on.
What? Okay.
None. What was your thing?
So, do you want... I have to keep the gay ass thing first.
Just do it. Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
So, I haven't consumed more gay ass content. I will
I
next
don't believe
week.
You.
But this... I mean, no. I mean, like, actual, like... So, I've watched videos on it. And I've read some interviews. So, that's what I'm going to talk about. But next week, I'm going to actually watch more real Code Geass. But this still counts, and I can still talk about it.
I love Nunmanji.
So this is interviews, and did I watch two? No, I think I watched like one video, maybe two. I can't remember. I only remember one of the videos because the other one was probably not that great or something. But okay, so I'm just gonna mention some random stuff from the interviews I've read. Because not all of them are like super crazy worth mentioning, but my main man, Suzaku, I guess I'll mention him first. My favorite guy, not really, but I thought like one thing that was in an interview when they were talking about him, it was a season 1 interview specifically, and it was like done. The way they were talking, it seemed like the last episode or two didn't air, but like it was about to air or something, because I don't know. But one thing I thought was super interesting that they said about Suzaku was like after like Lelouch does the thing that makes Suzaku mauled. I'm gonna be non-spoiler about it. They specifically say he reverts to his original personality. So like that way he acts at the end of season 1 and into R2 is considered like the real Suzaku. And I never like thought of it like that, which is like, I just feel like that's an insane fucking thing. Like that kind of changes how I look at him a little bit. Cause like I kind of saw like how he was like a little bit more like his childhood self in some sense, but I just didn't really like view like the entire thing of like he was doing before as like a facade. Like I mentioned it was a facade, and like that he's, you know, he really is just kind of making up for what he did, and like he's sticking to his path because he feels like, you know, he already did this terrible thing, so he might as well stick with it. But, you know, they're like this being his original personality is like insane to me. I thought that was like a really interesting thing that they said. And then another thing was like, if they didn't end the show, if they didn't get R2, they were going to do like some sort of psychological ending for Lelouch. I've read these interviews translated by someone's fucking Tumblr, because like I know back then people used to just, you have to go on someone's Tumblr for it. And this guy like put in parentheses, like he would put his own thoughts on some of the stuff they were saying in parentheses, and it was really annoying. And he just like assumed, so it would have been something like whatchamacallit, Ava, which is like, I hate this guy.
Ava, the only other mecha anime. Ava and Code Geass, the only 2 mecha anime.
There was also like some stuff like how Zero was a character concept like kind of before Lelouch, kind of sort of, and like the way they were talking about like Zero and Lelouch, like even before they started the show, they kind of had this like disconnect between like treating them as different characters, which I thought was interesting and is like consistent, you know, throughout like the series and even like the newest movie. That was super cool. It makes me even more interested in like, you know, kind of paying attention to that. Let's see. What else, dude? There was also like one thing that kind of, I don't know if I ever really would say I had a problem with it or anything, but it makes me more comfortable with the ending of like R2 and also future continuation of Code Geass, in the fact that like they very specifically mention that like kind of the piece that's at the end of the series isn't meant to be like lasting peace. Like it, you know, like it is clear that like they, you know, okay, let me not spoil that, but like there's people still around to keep peace in the end of the series, but like it's very clear that there'll still be like conflict and like still like this was mostly supposed to be like a step forward, I guess. That was good. And then the final thing, I watched a defense of Code Geass's Euphemia moment by Replay Value. It was mostly a good video. There was like some minor stuff that I didn't agree with, but I didn't really mind that much. The most, like, some of the interesting stuff was like him pointing out how Lelouch was reading Hamlet in the first episode, and I did see that, but I didn't really think that much about it because like I don't really remember Hamlet. But he was talking about how like, you know, there's structural similarities and like, fuck, I really want to spoil. Okay, I'm gonna spoil on this one, so if anybody was listening, like skip ahead from specifically this point to, you know, Crafts thing. But I'll give like 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Lelouch calls Euphemia perhaps his first love, and in Hamlet, he kills his first love. He kills his father, which Lelouch does, and Hamlet, the main character only lets his best friend who lives on know the truth, like his whole like truth and like what's actually going on, which Lelouch does with Suzaku. So like I didn't know like that, and it kind of plays into like kind of like how Geass like does that kind of like tragedy sort of thing. So I'm kind of interested in like reading Hamlet. I also really liked how like there was some explanations that he gave that I hadn't even thought of in regards to like the Euphemia scene about like Lelouch's pride, and like how Lelouch is totally the type of like dork who would explain like, this is how I would have won if I wanted to. Cause like that's partially like what is going on in the Euphemia scene, where like Lelouch, he does decide to like, do peaceful things and to like be by her side. But like when she asks him like, how would you have made me shoot you and like do all these things, and then he he's telling the details of the Geass, and like Lelouch does like overly let down his guard at times when he's like actually fully trusting of people. So like that was like stuff like that. He also did bring up things that like I thought of how like whatchamacallit, how obviously like it, he's said at the beginning of the story like multiple times how like he's prepared to walk the path of blood, he's prepared to do all these terrible things, and like he's always been like, I'm going to destroy Britannia, blah blah blah. And that's kind of like the premise he got, like that's the foundation upon which he gained the Geass, and like literally like the promise, and like it's not really part of the contract, but it's like part of like what made him fit for having a Geass, because not like having a Geass, not everyone's like suited to have it, but that was part of why he has it and works for him. So for it to break at that moment that he decided to not destroy Britannia and to join forces with those people, it makes sense why it would break at that moment. And then I did also notice like how it was already like acting up prior in the episode.
There's a lot of hints that it's gonna happen when it does.
Yeah. I can't like fully like just explain everything this guy said in his video, but like I it was mostly like how he was describing Lelouch's pride, and like how in character it is that he would tell someone like how he would have won, especially when like he brought up how Lelouch was making excuses about how like he was losing to Mao, and like, oh, if this blah 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 was different I would win, and how when he gets like rolled by like the military or whatever, he's like acting like a child about how this is so unfair, if I just knew this, and like C2 makes fun of him for it. Like there's just like a lot of instances of him doing that, so it just makes sense why he would like come up with like this worst possible thing that would allow for him to win against Euphemia if she were to do that. Yeah, I don't know, it kind of just was like a lot of things that kind of helped how I saw the scene. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice gay assing. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to mention. I don't think so. Yeah.
So we're skipping Vindy apparently because Nunmanji said just to go to the time code for my thing. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot.
So I finished Pokemon Scarlet.
Oh Jesus, you finished it.
Yeah, he's obsessed.
Yeah. It's just the best Pokemon game. I think it's clear. The only thing, I mean, I don't know how much I want to say about it here in this place at this time. But I mean, it's the GOAT. Great music all the way through. Great best rival. Good story. I love the way it's structured. The new Pokemon fucking slap. it's good. I enjoyed it all the way through. I thought it was great. It was like all I wanted to play.
Do you have the same
Area
favorite
Zero
character as I do?
conversations were great.
Are you gonna say Arvin?
Let's go. Yeah.
For obvious,
Craftsdwarf would be an
I
Arvin
immediately
guy.
understand.
Holy fuck.
No, I understand why you're gonna say what you're gonna say. I'm
not hating on Arvin. It's just funny. Like, that's definitely a Craftsdwarf guy.
Yeah, well, and I get that. I am not the same. I think Nimona is my favorite character. I fucking love Nimona.
Okay.
She's so good, so great. I was getting emotional at the rival battle after the Elite Four when the cutscene for that to start. I don't know why, but it was I was getting teary eyed. It was just It was so good. I was loving it.
I mean, kind of like what we were talking about before, but I definitely the only games that because I have not replayed most it's literally been I played Moon for the first time around when that came out, and then the next Pokemon game I played that was new was Scarlet. So I don't have fresh memories, but the cast is really solid. So I don't liking Nimona or liking third one who I just realized is a spoiler and didn't want to say they're all fucking great, honestly. And I was gonna say thinking back,
think
if any
Nimona
casts...
and Arvin are clearly a step above the other one, to be honest, but they're okay.
But they have the best fucking design of any Pokemon character. I don't know, man.
Really? Are we talking about the same person? Hello?
Yes. I fucking said that with a straight face. But I was also gonna say the only cast I could think that I'd consider in the same. Again, I have to replay first, but the only ones I feel would even challenge it, I guess, were 7 and 5, basically.
I don't think 5 is like that.
I mean, I think you have N. I think Sharon and
it has very good characters, but I don't think as a group.
Oh, that's
Gen 5
point.
is not
that. That's a fair point. Okay.
It's only Sun and Moon and Scarlet and Violet.
Oh yeah, I want to say Vindy because do you remember me suggesting which version you might play? Or if you wanted to change your mind?
No.
Okay, never mind. I was gonna say.
Why?
Hold on. No, DM me. Yeah. All right.
I had decided before you said anything to me. I had decided that I was just gonna pick Scarlet. I like Scarlet.
I was just gonna suggest because knowing how the story turns out in Scarlet and knowing that the specific way the antagonist would be different in Violet, I was I mentioned it to you because there's a personal reason you might have, if that makes sense, that Violet will connect to you more. Yeah, where you Scarlet connects more to me.
I don't know.
Right?
If what you're saying is what I would maybe think, I don't think it matters.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering.
Connect either way, and I think, I like the way that Koraidon looks more, and so that helped me a lot more because he was my fucking homie the whole time.
No, I was even thinking about it where it's as a Pokemon, or as a character even, Koraidon's just a silly little dog who just
loves his sandwiches.
Yeah, and I don't know, because maybe it's just because I didn't Violet, but I prefer Koraidon design-wise, but I was wondering, Nun, how did you feel about Miraidon because you played Violet? Do you like or care for Miraidon at all? Or
I like him, but
okay.
I don't super think about him that much, but I do like him.
Okay.
I like how the game handled Legendary, the Legendary in general, because, I've been kind of wanting them to, see how they would kind of, tone down the overall story focus on the Legendary, and I think, Scarlet and Violet did that, very well. Obviously it's still relevant to the story, and it's still important, but it's definitely not everything. I mean, it's not everything in any Pokemon game, but he's not this big deal to the region overall, I would say, which I kind of like as a change, because most of the people in the region don't know he exists, so I kind of like that actually.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would like to talk about it maybe more in a different context, but it's so fucking good. It blows my mind how good it is because it just
yeah, it's a very, very impressive game. I don't fault anyone for having it like as their favorite. Like that very much makes sense. And I feel like I've reached a point personally where like I admittedly have a little bit of not brain rot necessarily. I think it's a little different, but it's like I think if I were just like a little bit younger and a little bit more how I used to be with Pokemon, I would sink a lot of time into Scarlet and Violet and be like very into it.
Yeah.
But I've already been past the stage where like I used to have like I had like 800 hours in one of the games and like 600. Even in like Heart Gold Soul Silver, I had like 252 or something. Like I've just had disgusting hours. But like now I'm like a little different.
Yeah.
So I've kind of missed where like it would really, really fucking hit with me.
I mean, I'm waiting for DLC, obviously, for one of the things, but like I only have like a few very small things that I prefer in other Pokemon games. And like I don't want to say all of them here, but I'll say one of them, which is I think when you do the gym leader rematches in this game, they're a lot lamer compared to other games. And like the biggest reason for that is just like in other games, right? It's like you unlock the national decks and then you do the gym leader rematches, so they have like revamped national decks teams. And obviously with the national decks, that's not what happens. But I do think that like a lot of the gym leaders, like their teams aren't, I don't know, they don't feel like revamped enough when you do the rematches. So it's just like,
yeah, I did play like a few of the rematches.
Like obviously like the
like,
early ones
great.
where they go from like 2 Pokemon to like 6 is like big. But even then it's like, I never really felt like any of those were like, oh my god, wow, this is like a cool, nice like revamping of the, the gym.
Yeah,
but that's like such a
stance
small like complaint with the game, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, what I was going to say is because like I definitely didn't think about, because I haven't thought about the other gym leader rematches, because I haven't played a game that has gym leader rematches in a long time, except for Scarlet, so I didn't think about how the teams weren't very different. But I do like what that does for the character stuff. But I understand not caring about the battles themselves. So, especially at that point, you're probably strong enough that it's like, like the difficulty, the levels that you're dealing with kind of level out at around like 60 something. So,
yeah.
Yeah. My turn?
Yes. Oh wait, what was Nine gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say I really want to play more Pokemon, but Crafts hates me or something, maybe. I don't know.
Play Mother. It's not on me. Okay, say something.
No.
Oh my god. Why are you? What are you waiting for?
I want to play more Pokemon. I can't. I'm not in the mood to play Mother. I'm sorry.
So then don't play it, and we'll play the next thing.
I thought I already said I wasn't gonna play Mother.
Yeah, I knew. When like fucking 3 weeks had passed and you're like, yeah, I haven't touched it. And it's like, okay, I guess we're never playing Mother. Just let me know when you want to play Pokemon Coliseum. Never did.
Damn, y'all are playing Coliseum.
No.
Oh,
look,
shit.
This guy.
Hold on.
Nah,
I've been
you said you had to
play
finish
Coliseum.
something the last time.
I don't fucking remember what it was because I probably started something else.
You can't do this to me. I'm scrolling back.
Coliseum goes hard because there's such a limited pool of Pokemon and you can still catch a Furret.
You can continue on your thing while I look for this.
But yeah, Craftsdwarf, you can go. I mean, I'm done talking about it for now.
I want to do another rotation just so you guys.
Oh my god,
know in
I cannot.
advance. I could do several more. Actually,
imagine being like, I have work tomorrow. I need to.
Okay.
And then saying,
look.
Well,
I love the
I
gay assing, but I can't have that
rotation.
as my only thing.
Then maybe stop the gay assing.
How could you say that? Can you stop with
Also,
your dirty fucking mouth?
Also, it seems like Craftsdwarf might just maybe motorcycle guy cut his like internet cord or something. Dude, did you know that that's happened to my little brother twice in the last like 6 months? That
Wait,
someone's been doing like, cause like, so I moved out of that house, but like someone's been doing like yard work at that house and cut the internet cable twice in the last like 6 months. So then all of a sudden he's just without internet for like days while they gotta wait for the internet people to come in. And every time he messages it, it's just so funny that he's like fucked that hard because of someone else. It like, I love it. It's so funny.
You hate that guy. Holy fuck.
Who?
Your little brother.
Dude, he was so toxic to me today. He deserves it.
Anyway, so yeah, a little earlier this year, actually, I think it was the first thing I finished this year. I read JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run, not quite finishing my JoJo reread because I think I am gonna try and reread Part 8, like as the last manga of my manga reread, because it's the most recent I read. But yeah,
was that
Steel
the
Ball
one you
Run,
guys did the podcast on?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And so Steel Ball Run is it's my favorite JoJo part still, because I mean it's the part that like really got me into JoJo, because I think I'd like tried and dropped both part 1 and 3, and it wasn't until Steel Ball Run, which didn't even start as a JoJo part, that I actually like got into the series and eventually went back and read the rest of it. And yeah, it's fucking really good. Like Johnny is a great Joestar. His friendship with Gyro, like there isn't really a group in Steel Ball Run in the same way that there is in Vindy, we brought up Stardust Crusaders and the Golden Wind characters and so on and so forth. But with Johnny and Gyro 100% have like the best like dynamic of JoJo characters. Like I love them. They're funny together. They have like really good stuff. Like you have the mentor thing going on with Gyro teaching Johnny. And, like, the moment that really cemented it for me when they go off into the final battle and they just, like, share a secret with each other, like, their deepest secret is just, they're so fucking good.
And they're so gay. They're so unbelievably homosexual
Insanely.
All the time. And they make fun of fat people and they sing about pizza. Like, they're just the goats.
The way like Johnny plays off, like Gyro will just say this stupid joke, and like Johnny will like write it down. He was like, "Oh yeah, that was really good," or something like that, or yeah, with the Rella 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 song, and like it almost seems sarcastic with just the way he's so accepting of it. But then like I remember like with the pizza song later on, they're both like quoting the lyrics. Like he actually
they're just
like,
singing it later.
He's just like,
and
the way it comes up seems like he's being sarcastic, but no, he genuinely likes the song. He just didn't get it across in a way that reads that way immediately, and it's just, they're fucking
yeah.
great.
There's one of the JoJo's fighting games has that is like an intro for them, is like him coming up with a song and singing it, and in the voice acting you can hear like Johnny's actually like telling him, he's like, "That's fucking good, like that goes crazy."
No, yeah, they're super great. Yeah, there's a lot of good fights and neat fights, and the side cast is also pretty strong. The main antagonist is really good, and the way like God, Johnny and his whole stuff with his backstory and his self-hatred and the way that like specifically climaxes with the fight against the main antagonist is just really like fucking perfect. And then the way that stuff gets resolved in the part of the manga after that fucking hurts me emotionally. Yeah, it's just like super solid and really, really fucking good. And yeah, I don't know if I have much more to say, generally speaking, because it's just, it's
how
a very solid.
How do you feel about the pedophilia rampant in the manga?
Oh yeah, right. The fucking honestly, I mean, I don't know. I didn't think about it actually. Part 3 had the fucking orangutan and the fucking.
Fair enough. You know what?
So
it's not worse than a monkey raping a girl who's younger, because it's the president of the United States. Fair. I understand now.
Okay, yeah. And then, yeah, it's a neat manga, very good. Probably a favorite. I don't know. I'm really curious to see what because I was even thinking, I literally made a 5x5 in preparation, because I think by the time I finish my manga reread, I can have a 5x5 I'm satisfied with. But also I'm worried that the new One Piece image I chose is too small, or it doesn't. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. And because yeah, it's a very good manga.
Okay, I guess I can go again? Question mark.
Yeah, if you want.
Are you gonna want to do another one, Crafts? Or
yeah,
because I have 2 more.
I'm thinking of cramming 3 into my last one, but okay.
I mean, technically mine is 4, but it's
I think
3 things as one. Yeah. So I guess I'll talk about The Last of Us.
That's
but for real this time, guys.
Okay, let's go. I'm excited. So you watched it?
Yeah, I did watch it.
What'd you think?
I enjoyed it quite a bit, but so I mean, I'll I gotta talk about the positives first because there are some a little negative things that I would say about it. But overall, like, I really like the parts that do expand on the game and like kind of change things from the game. In particular, the Bill and Frank episode, like
goated. Yeah. Goated.
Frank in the games is he's already dead, so we don't really know who he is, and like I don't even know if he has he probably has a name like in one of the like notes or something, but I didn't really remember his name. I did kind of remember Bill like mentioning a partner, but like obviously like that just didn't exist in the game, and kind of seeing their story was really good. Like I really liked that. It was a very unique episode, and I think like one strength that the TV show has is like for side characters it's easier for them to just like have their own like episode or like section of an episode, like cut away from Joel and Ellie. Like as a TV show, I think it's easier for them to do that. I don't know how it might be a little more difficult when they're adapting like part 2 to like have like the Abby stuff completely like I feel like there's a little more of a challenge with how they'll like structure that, because like that's a long, like it's like the Abby stuff is just as long as Ellie's stuff pretty much. So like like are they just gonna like not show Ellie for like a super long time, or are they gonna like switch back and forth, or like I feel like there's a little more
I
of
don't
a
know. I
challenge
mean
there.
they did, yeah, I mean it's gonna be harder, but we know it's multiple seasons.
Yeah, I do realize that, but like even if they do like an Ellie season and then an Abby season, an entire season of Abby, if people are like I don't know, like if people happen to be as cringe about Abby as they are,
I don't
feel
think
like
they
it'd be
will
very hard to they probably won't, but
no shot.
The whole season just following Abby and not showing like Ellie, I could see that being like a little more of a risk, but I'm still interested. But yeah, I do really like some of the changes. I thought what the fuck, the black kid, what is his name, the little black
Sam?
kid, Sam, I thought he was like just more endearing in the show for being deaf.
The deaf stuff I thought worked so well. I thought there was so much care taken to like showing all these little parts about how they lived with it, and the sign language and stuff was like really good, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, like him like his older brother learning knowing some sign, and kind of it was cool to see like Ellie doing some sign. Like I really liked that. Like those are two examples of something that I think the show did a bit better than the games. Even if they do like not have Sam and whatever the fuck like outright betray Joel and Ellie for a bit, I don't really mind that that's not there. What else? And I also do like I mostly agree with like what they decided to like focus on in the show, and the fact that like the infected are less like focused upon. Like the appeal of Last of Us is the human people in the world, and the infected are really just like the infected in like the apocalypse and the cordyceps. Like that's more so just like
it's the
a
reason
backdrop
people...
for why people are the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. It's like why people are pushed so far and are so desperate in how they act, but it's about like people at their breaking points doing things, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, doing
for
things
others
to protect the people that they love.
Yeah. And I think that
and like that not always necessarily being a positive thing, but also something that's very hard to like outright criticize and like
but also definitely not
doing.
The wrong thing. I think that's like the point that like is lost about the game on a lot of people who play it and like complain, is that like 2 is like explicitly saying that like, while it's not always the best thing, it's not the wrong thing either, That's like I would say like a fundamental part of the series. And I think a lot of like the show is building to that. And I think that's a lot of the game too, is building to obviously like the big moment, you know, that I'm not going to spoil, but it is what it is. And I think the show does like just such a great job of like every like episode, or then as it gets longer, like little arc driving to that point more and more and more. You know what I mean? And leading you closer and closer there to where like you just understand why, like you get to the point where Joel's doing that, and like an average person who like doesn't know what's coming like is expecting it and is ready for it, and is like, yeah, you know.
The way I view that is like there's like two like main things that like Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 is like saying about that, which is just like yeah, for that specific person you can't fully say that it's wrong, but it's also one of those things where like they have to accept that other people aren't going to be okay with that, and that's like the burden and like the sin that they're willing to accept and bear. Like people wanting revenge on Joel is something that he has to accept the consequences of his actions. Like if he wants to save the one he loves the most in the world, then that's what comes with doing that when it's something that affects like so many other people. And then two, what Last of Us 2 is specifically doing is like it's not saying revenge is bad. It's really like what it really criticizes is losing sight of the people that matter to you. Like when the character, I feel like I could just kind of say what Last of Us 2 is about a little bit. Like I don't really have to spoil like what happens in the end, but like the person that's very obviously the person is like disregarding the safety of like Tommy and like Dina, and like leaving these people and placing them at risk, and like turning their back on a happy future that they could have for the sake of this person who's dead. Like that's what it's criticizing, and that's what's like really the problem, and especially when like
right, it's not living...
now this person is making all these like new enemies and like having all this baggage to carry.
It's not
that's
living
going to
for
affect the people they love.
Yeah, it's not living for the people who are alive. She's living for someone who isn't.
Yeah,
and
like
that's like the point that the game's trying to make is that like and I think people don't contrast enough. The difference between like what happens with Joel and his daughter, and what happens with Ellie and what happens, and like the way the difference is in like Joel couldn't really get revenge for what happened to Sarah, right? So he just kind of had to eventually over a long period
like he's
of time,
protecting someone who is alive and who is like actually like.
Well, no, what I mean is that like he couldn't go for like revenge immediately after.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it like by the point that it's happened, it's like, okay, well now he has to like move forward, and that's something that like allows him to continue eventually living for other people. Yeah. It's just it's a whole thing, and people just like don't get it, even though like it's so obvious.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I thought the show was good. I think the main things that don't like fully land for me is like, well, one, personally, I don't think the show's better than the first game. I didn't like get more out of it overall because like, one, I really connected to the fact that like, I'm playing as Joel. One thing that I really like in like the multitude of things that I've watched like Neil Druckmann talk about the game is like, yeah, that aspect of how most people who play the game say, I'm Joel. Like, they, like, put themselves in Joel. And, like, that's 100% what I was doing, where, like, I was so, like, part of my connection with Ellie was the fact that I was physically protecting her and, like, playing with Ellie. Like, seeing, like, her help me out and, like, struggling through difficult encounters where, like, I've had to start over multiple times. And, like, that's part of, like, where I would, like, bond with Ellie. But because, like, the show is a show and, like, I'm not directly, contributing to that, I'm not as attached to Ellie in the TV show as I was in the game. Because, like, I'm not Joel. And, like, while I think Last of Us 1 is a good, like, solid, like, well written work, I think it's not, like, for me, like, super like great in the face of like just its story alone. Like, I think the gameplay and, like, you know, the survival part of it carries some of the weight of, like, its storytelling and my connection to the characters. So when, like, I'm just, like, mostly doing a story experience, like, just experiencing the story, I wasn't as attached to the bond between Ellie and Joel. I really, really liked Ellie in Last of Us 1, and I don't feel the same way for Ellie in the show. Even if she's still good, and, like, you know, I do like Bella Ramsey as Ellie. Like, she's a good Ellie. Mm-hmm. But it's just not the same for me.
Yeah. How did you feel about the I assume you noticed, how did you feel about the cameos of Joel and Ellie's original actors?
I thought that was super good. I like, the only thing is like bro, like, just hearing, like, Ellie from the game's
it was
voice
so
in
obvious.
the show is like,
it was,
oh my god,
because she was, like, making noises, like, that are similar to noises that Ellie makes. You know what I mean?
Because she just sounds so much like Ellie in her natural voice.
Yeah, and, like Troy Baker at least wasn't using, like, his southern accent. So even though he always sounds like Troy Baker and always, like, will sound like Joel, you know, he was a little different.
Yeah, I really like the usage of, like, the characters who played roles in the games having roles in the show. Like, that's super awesome.
Also, what did you think about them putting the DLC in, just, like, in the story, which I guess even, like, the remake,
I thought it was good.
I feel like is, like, good. Yeah. Well,
yeah, like,
I was surprised the remake
for
didn't do it, because I feel like I said months ago, maybe on stream or something, I don't know, that, like, the remake could do it in that exact same place, because I think it just makes sense and it's good.
Yeah, it would make sense, but I'm fine with them not doing that, I guess. Yeah, I thought it was a good episode.
Yeah.
One thing that, like, well, there's, like, two more, like, kind of issues that I have with the show. One, I do wish it was, like, a little longer, just a little bit, because, like, even outside of, like, see, this is part of where, like, you know, some of that is, like, this is coming from someone who's, like, played the games, so it's like, you know, maybe it's, like, a little more, it's not a problem if someone's only seen it, but again, like, I feel like I wanted a little more like, a few more episodes to, like, really establish, like, the connection between Ellie and Joel. Like, not that I think there's a problem with it and it doesn't do enough, but, like, even if just one more episode of them, like, bonding and, like, them really, like, you know, connecting, I kind of wanted that a little bit. I don't know if there was enough for me personally. And then two, I feel, you know how, like, in the games, right, like, and, like, okay, so Joel is, like, someone that's, like, you know, very feared, and, like, he's a fucking, like, insane guy for, like, going through all this crazy shit and, like, coming out on top and, like, surviving.
Yeah.
And I think by cutting out so many of the encounters, I think he's definitely, like, way less of, like, he looks way, like, he doesn't seem as bad as he seems in the games. And, like, I get that, like, you can't really adapt, like, all these, like, fights and, like, all these, like, people and encounters, and because, you know, it's a live action show, and, like, I feel like it would be very repetitive and draining. But I think, like, him just, like I don't remember where I heard this, if this was something that Neil Druckmann said about him, but, like, something about him just, like, because of how people fear him, he's almost viewed as, like, a fucking, like, animal and, like, a freak of nature. And, like, I definitely don't think the show's Joel comes across that way and seems nearly as, like, bad, and, like,
so
I think a lot of, like, the heavy lifting is done by that last episode rather than, like, throughout.
I don't think I agree, and not because, like, of what the show shows in terms of Joel's actions, but, like, I think you see that in the way that both like, especially early on, right? Like, so in the scenes in the first QZ.
Yeah, when people, he like beats that guy.
Yeah,
with
well,
his,
just
like,
all
fist.
the way people treat Joel that entire time, right? Where they do literally act like Joel is, Trish's dog on a leash,
I do
right?
get that we're like
and like
told that.
Yeah, like,
and like,
well, you're shown it through people's actions. It's just other people's actions and the way they perceive him, and then also I think you see it really well in the episodes with Tommy when they get to the camp.
Yeah, like it's mostly how people treat him, but like I think some of the effect is lost when like there's really only like the last episode that mostly for that. Like it's hard to buy into like how many enemies he has, and just like I could see, like, I feel like his actions are more like justifiable within just like the show. Like I could see how someone will watch that and be able to say he isn't like as bad as he. I don't know, like it's hard to describe because like the last episode still exists, and that's still like the main thing and the main people who don't like this guy, and that's what matters. But like in terms of just having like, I think the other stuff from before that last episode, he doesn't really seem that much more above the average bad guy within the world. Especially with like he does torture those guys, and we see that, but like there's like the cannibals, and like there's still like that whole group of people who took over that town who are probably are comparable to Joel. Like I just don't think he seems like this very special exception in this world quite as much, with so much cut out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like that's really the main thing. Like I think Joel is very clearly like way above most other people as this fucking like monster, like freak of nature in the games, but he's definitely not like that in the show. And I'm not like as into that not being a thing, because like again I almost feel like he's more like you can rationalize him a bit more and not really like understand, like I don't know. It's a little hard to describe, but I'm just like slightly let down by that. But I still like the show.
Yeah.
I do want to replay the game.
So yeah, that's the thing.
I really like it.
I did replay the game like the exact time as watching the show, even like week to week, same moment. So I it's like both are really fresh for me. So I don't know, but. I think it's fair, like, what you're saying. I just, like, that didn't bother me enough, and I feel like, especially if you're not playing the game on, like, a hard difficulty where you're, like, dying a bunch, it's, like, the game's, like, about, like, 9 hours, and the show's, like, about 9 hours long. And I think that, like, the way that, like, I would just phrase it ultimately is that I think the things that are, like, what you lose and gain for The Last of Us is a story. I think, like, you do lose, I guess, a little bit of that, like, Joel is a monster and some of the action. But what you gain, I think, in terms of, like, the Frank stuff and even some more behind the scenes of, like, what's going on in, is it Baltimore? The stuff with Sam, like, with the other people and...
Yeah, like, the overall, like, world, like, there's a very, like, just more clear of a picture given in
I also think a lot of that,
with
like,
how, like, frames
is in better
things.
service of leading into, like, that big moment in the story and, like, kind of the central idea of the story. And so I think since, like... the changes in the show, I think, service that better. So, in my opinion, think the show's the better version, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, like, I think I would be, like way more into the show, if not just for, like, me not liking Ellie as much. Because, like, I was super into, like, the dad-daughter thing, playing the game.
Yeah.
I'm Joel. Like part of like the thing too was like my gameplay would be affected by like if Ellie was in trouble or I feared her to be in trouble. Like like when I was playing like the hospital part. I mean, I don't think that's
yeah.
And like I was playing sloppier and rushing through that encounter because I wanted to see if she was okay, and because like even though I know Last of Us Part 2 exists, like there was still moments where like I would just play like worse because like I wanted to see if she was okay. I wanted to hurry up and get to her and to save her, and like that was like my, you know, connection with like Ellie. But like the show, I you know, it's just like a step back. I do think part 2, since like as a story, it is far more interesting to me than part 1, to where like, you know, missing out on some of the gameplay, making like heightening the story might not be as big of a deal to me, possibly. I would have to see. I really hope it's like, you know, they really go off with adapting it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to see season 2 and 3, I guess. Like, just see, you know, if they work in, like, the flashbacks into the next season whenever it is, or if they, like, do those kind of, like, in order.
I would
and,
think
like,
they would do that just to have, like, you know, Pedro Pascal still be in the show. And also, like, you know, how he's talking and how he's, like, excited to, you know, continue working on Last of Us, like, I feel like he's going to be in there more than just,
you know, I assume they're
the first
filming some of
episode
those
or
soon,
whatever.
and then they'll have, like, but I just wonder, like, are you going to structure it the same way the game is structured, or, because, like, The Last of Us 1 is structured like a TV show. Like, like, when you play it, like, it's these little vignettes that feel like episodes that you're going between, you know, with these big hard cuts in between, and Last of Us 2 isn't that in the same way, so I'm curious to see if, when adapting the game to a show, how they'll change the structure to make the story fit better. New medium.
Yeah, I think like Last of Us 2 is a lot more challenging. Like there's a lot of like, I can see why they'll have to like change it, because like I don't think it's objectively the best way to like, you know, do this bunch of Ellie stuff and then do this bunch of Abby stuff.
The more I think about it, I don't think you can adapt it like almost one for one the same way the game is. It just won't work.
Yeah. Also, like, this isn't really... thinking about it now, I'm kind of fine on it, but something that, like, you know, and I did kind of mention this earlier a little bit, how, like, you know, they don't focus on the infected that much. I don't really have that much of a problem with it, but, I mean, it is something that I slightly maybe kind of wish there was maybe, like, one episode where they did a little more with the infected, just because, like, I know there is that scene where, like, a bunch of them run out and, like, you know, mess up, like, all those, like, raiders or whatever.
Yeah. So
but,
I could be wrong.
They have very small presence.
I do think I remember
show.
reading like a headline or something that said that like they want later seasons to have more of a focus. Like the next season will focus more on the infected, and they will be like a more common part, which I think makes a lot of sense for the type of story that it is, where you have essentially characters all in one place hunting each other. That's a much better backdrop to focus on the infected, as opposed to we're just kind of traveling from one place to another the whole time. Mm-hmm. But also, like, you know, at the end of the day, I do like some of the ways the infected were shown. Like, I thought they looked good, and I really liked seeing the big
good.
guy. I thought was super fun. Like, just the one time you see him, it's like, oh my god, this fucking asshole.
Like, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, again, like, I think it makes, you know, Joel a little less impressive. Like, I don't think Joel has to be, like, super crazy impressive and, like, oh my god, he's fucking taking all these guys and all these infected and stuff, but...
the show even kind of goes more the other way, where...
Yeah, they
Joel's,
do, like, do the
kind
whole,
of
like,
washed.
I'm old.
Yeah, like, he's supposed to be a little bit washed, and that's, like, part of his whole confrontation with...
scared of... Yeah, like, that's that whole scene where he's, like, confessing all that stuff to Tommy that isn't really in the games. Like, that was a really good scene. But I mean, at the end of the day, they still do say that, like, you know, he did what the whole group of Fireflies couldn't do, but by cutting out so much of what's in the game,
right,
it doesn't seem like as much of a feat, I would say. I don't want to sound like I'm being too, like, negative about it. Like, I do still really like the show, but I really fucking like the game, like, a lot. So
yeah,
good show though.
I honestly don't have anything, so in the interest
Yes, you
of
do.
time, I genuinely don't. In the interest of time, I am taking a skip.
God damn
Okay.
it. I wasn't kidding. I mean, because you talked about Sunbreak last week, but we didn't actually talk about Sunbreak. Like, you just talked about you recently playing it, not the whole thing. But anyway, whatever.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. It's just something I thought
I'll
about.
try to hurry up when it's my turn again. I'm sorry.
No, you have to talk about The Last of Us for half an hour.
Oh my god, I didn't know it was that long.
I
Sorry.
think I wasn't counting. It might be. I don't even fucking know. But anyway, so I am gonna talk about three things because I'm terrible, and even though you guys need to go to bed and I need to go to bed, but yeah, I'll talk about them anyway. Fuck it. So I'm gonna talk about basically, yeah, everybody's favorite Tokusatsu. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Kamen Rider Geats, which is this Kamen Rider show that started in September. Then I'm going to talk about Donbrothers, which ended a few weeks ago, and I'm going to talk about Royal Sentai KingOhger, which started after Donbrothers ended. So Donbrothers is, it's another Super Sentai season in a long stream. Like, basically, honestly, since I started watching Super Sentai again with Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger, except for the series right after that one, Super Sentai has been just fucking like banging basically.
Wait, what
every
series are you watching? I'm sorry.
The current one is Royal Sentai KingOhger, but I'm talking about Donbrothers, which was Avataro Sentai Donbrothers, which is the one that ended this year. It started last year, basically, since except for Ryusoulger, which was just kind of whatever. Like every Super Sentai season has been like super fucking crazy or good. Especially their like Avatar set. It's just cracked, I guess is the way to say it. Like, because it's just so absurd a lot of times. Like, basically the premise is they put on goggles and they fight monsters that are they basically humans who are so consumed by their desires that they become monsters pretty much. The focus, honestly, like a lot of the conflict is actually centered around the Cerebrans, who are basically like otherworlders who they don't get human emotions, like and they when they defeat the monsters, they virtually kill them pretty much. So, which obviously the Donbrothers, when they defeat the monsters, they just turn them back into humans. So there's that kind of conflict going on there. The Cerebrans are really good. They, have their own arc because, they just, like I said, they don't get human emotions. Like, one of them literally kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, but he plays it like, I don't know, he does autism flaps in one episode, so I think he's kind of leaning into that aspect because he's the one who, like, he doesn't understand why humans laugh and what they find funny, and, like, when he does the imitation laughter, it's kind of fucking weird and creepy. But, like, they all end up becoming kind of endearing, and they have their rivalry with the Dawn Brother characters, and then the Dawn Brothers themselves are fucking a weird ass group. Like the Black Ranger is a fugitive who's wanted, and he literally, I'm pretty sure like 95% of the show passes before they they actually know his identity. Like the Black Ranger is literally like, he doesn't even know. Like, they interact with each other all the time, but they do not know that they're also superheroes who fight alongside each other for most of the show, when normally in a Super Sentai series they would know. And then the Pink Ranger is also unique because he's the first male Pink Ranger in the entire franchise. And he's like a wife guy who just loves the shit out of his cute wife. But then that gets, they use a lot of like perspective in the series, in that like the characters' like view of the world isn't necessarily like true or accurate, and so a lot of that is their conflicts is kind of like reconciling like what they know versus like how the world actually is, basically. And it's just a lot of like silly and absurd and weird shit happens a lot of the time. Like with the three Cerebrans, like one of them gets really into Odin, which is, literal street food, and when he's introducing the other two to Odin, like they go in like formal attire because he's trying to get across how he like really likes this stuff. They're just stupid. The mentor character is literally the protagonist of the previous season, except his personality is completely different, and I thought that he was just like an alternate reality version of that character because that season dealt in alternate realities, but there's nothing in the show, like, if anything, the show says it just straight up is that person, and I don't, it doesn't. It kind of doesn't make any sense, but it's still really funny because he's just a fucking goofball in his own way, while being a character who's very stoic and serious after having portrayed a character who's a goofball. Like it's. Donbrothers is fucking weird. Kind of one of the reasons I also want to bring it up because there's also Kamen Rider Geats, which is I'm not a big. I don't know. So I think my problem with Geats is that I'm kind of like it's okay. Basically the premise is it's like a battle royale thing where the winner gets a desire. They did their first one, which was just like the first series, or in like universe they do different seasons basically. And, like, the second one was literally Among Us, where there's an imposter, and if the imposter makes it to the end, they win and get their desire granted instead, which was funny. So it's just very clearly, like, taking inspiration from certain modern trends and stuff. I think my thing with the show is that I'm fine with the cast overall, except I just do not give a shit about the main character whatsoever. And I was just... part of the reason I wanted to talk about these shows is because I was kind of unpacking why. And I think what I realized is because, like... just like because Momo, the main character of Donbrothers, is his whole thing is literally that he's just like perfect, basically. Like he's insanely talented and good at everything to the point that it's completely alienated him. Like he's always been lonely and he literally doesn't even understand what happiness is. One of the absurd gags with his character that I think is really good is that because he's so like quote unquote perfect, he cannot lie, and if he actually lies, he will literally have a heart attack and die on the spot, and he does so multiple times in the show, and they resuscitate him like that. It's very funny. I guess which I bring that up as like a quote-unquote perfect character because, he, I think, has like, interesting stuff going on, where with Geats, he's basically just been winning the game through his reincarnation since like year 1, like literally AD 1, and there was 2 conflicts where he literally won because he had won, or he overcame the conflict because he had won previous games. And I just like the first time it happened, I was like, and I thought about more. It's like, okay, the people who run the game, could have let him not win this conflict, but they decided to abide by their rules instead. So that's fine. The second one is like, wow, he got a power up and fulfilled the wishes of 4 of his previous reincarnations. And I'm like, okay, I just do not fucking care anymore. So yeah, I'm just not feeling Geats right now. But I do want to kind of partially recommend KingOhger, which is the currently running Super Sentai season. It is I'm literally partway through episode 4, and the premise is, well, what's different and unique about it is that, as far as I know, is that it takes place entirely in a like normally the Super Sentai and even Kamen Rider series take place in like an alternate Japan, where a lot of the areas they go around to are just places in Japan where they're filming locations and stuff. KingOhger just straight up takes place in an alternate version of Earth that there's been barely any like actual place they've been into. Like there's been a lot of CG and effects, where the premise is that it's like a Terra where there's 5 different kings who are united and they're facing off against the best villain name I've ever fucking heard in one of these series, Bugnarok. Because it's bug themed, so that's what they call the bad guys, and I fucking love it. It's so funny. Every time I think they say Bugnarok, I'm like, yes, that's fucking perfect. And then, the premise is that the 5 kings are united, except the Red King is really shitty and evil. So the main character Gira, he becomes a tyrant king to try and face off with him. And I don't know, I think thought the episodes that have come out so far have been really fucking good. And I'm very interested to see where it goes. I like the cast so far. I really, really want to know about the Purple Ranger because she has like a long coat and a sword over her back and a long collar. And I'm like, oh my god, they made Femme Kirito real. And I want to see how edgy she is because she seems really fucking edgy. And I like it. But we haven't gotten her episode yet. Yeah.
Epic. Vindy's a big tokusatsu guy.
Look... Gentlemen, I've been up since 5:30 this morning, okay? Like, I had to be at work at 6. I don't know what you want from me. Sorry,
right,
I thought I heard it beeping.
I will try to do my rotation very quickly.
No, wait, what do you mean rotation?
I didn't do my second thing.
Wait, what? Well, I did my second thing. How did you did 2 things.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll save the other thing for next time.
We're not doing 3 rotations. We're doing a wrap up.
It is
so
what it
you can talk
is.
about what you're talking about next time. I'm probably gonna talk about Beastars.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about the R2 picture dramas, and I'm gonna talk about RoboCop. Unless there's something else that I consumed that I want to talk about, I guess.
Who knows? Good luck. That's good luck to me next week having something to talk
All right.
about. You know what I mean?
Look, I'm saying you can talk about Sunbreak because we never actually talked about it.
I guess not. Huh?
No, because I mean we
Watch.
talked about it, but it wasn't recorded, right? Like, and you
guess.
talked about it last week, but it was only like your recent experience with the game. Like, we never talked about what we think about the monsters or the new maps or
That's
anything.
true. I guess
at
we
all.
didn't.
So
You sound so
I
mad
realized,
saying that.
No, I'm just saying that I realized it later, and I just so yeah, just whatever. We can talk about it next week. Go to bed anyway.
All right.
All right. See. Thank you for listening.
Adios, gamers.
Fortunate.